Hello everyone. In the last video, I showed how to enable dynamic updates of your model, your LLM model, using Azure App Configuration, and also dynamic updates of any other setting related to your LLM interaction. Now I want to demonstrate how you can do a targeted rollout of changes in your configuration using Azure App Configuration. And when I say a targeted rollout, I mean rolling out to a subset of users and progressively ramping that up until your configuration change is completely ramped out to your entire audience. So I've updated the application at this point to now be user aware. As you can see right now, I am currently Joe, and that's because the username query string in my application says I'm Joe. And right now, Joe is using GPT-4. And what I want to do is I want to demonstrate how we can use feature flags to progressively roll out a new model, and in this case, GPT-4o Mini. All right. So to get started, I actually want to look at configuration first. So when I go into my Azure App Configuration instance, let me refresh here. You can see that there's something different than the last video. I've now added a new setting, Chat LLM2. And when I compare Chat LLM2, it's mostly the same. It just has a different model name. So GPT-4o Mini for Chat LLM2. If I go to Chat LLM, I just have GPT-4. Okay. So I now have two different configurations for the interaction with my LLM. And what I want to do is I want to start moving to the second configuration. All right. So in order to do this, I'm actually going to create a feature flag in my app configuration instance. And I've already set up my code to be ready for a feature flag named new chat LLM version. So I will create a flag. I will make sure it's enabled. I will name it new chat LLM version. And I'm going to go ahead and create this thing. All right. Now, I will get to the code where I show how I'm consuming the flag. But first, let me just demonstrate a little change here. I go to my application and I see without restarting the application, I'm now using GPT-4o Mini. I'm now using the configuration defined in Chat LLM2. Okay. All right. Now let me go into the code and I can show the changes that were made in order to support this rollout. And just to clear it up, this is a simple on and off flag. In a bit, I'll go over how to make it actually progressive rather than just a complete off to a complete on. But now that we've kind of introduced the flag behavior, let us look into the code. All right, minimize this. We are back in program.cs. So this is pretty similar to what we saw in the last video. I'll go over the changes that have been made. So first up, in the bootstrapping code for Azure App Configuration, you can see that I'm now calling use feature flags. Use feature flags sets up my application to start refreshing feature flags, and I modify the refresh interval to be 10 seconds, similarly to my configuration refresh interval, which is also 10 seconds. Once again, that's rather quick for a production scenario, but for demo purposes, we do want it to be quick. All right. Now, feature flag refresh is actually decoupled from plain configuration setting refresh, so it is important to have both of these. Then we see some changes down here when we were wiring up the object model to consume our configuration. In the previous video, we had a single LLM configuration being bound by the setting and app config, which was called chat LLM. But now we know that our application is aware of two different configurations for our LLM. And so now we're registering two LLM configurations using .NET's named options pattern, where you register a object model for your configuration based off some configuration setting, and you give it a name. So I have used the features static type here that I've created. I have created a type called features. Let's go to it. And you can see I'm defining all the constants I need for this rollout in this features class. I have the name of the feature that I've created, new chat LLM version, and I have the names of the associated configurations for the LLM that I'm switching between based off whether the feature is on or off. All right. And so if we come back here, this should make a little more sense. We're registering one LLM configuration in our .NET app under the name of chat LLM, and coincidentally, that's the same setting name or configuration name in app config. We do the same thing for chat LLM2. So what is happening here in program.cs so far is we have told app configuration, we are using feature flags with refresh, and we are making sure our application is aware of the two different configurations that we want for our LLM. Additionally, down here, you can see that I call add feature management, and I make sure to specify with targeting. With targeting, make sure that the username that I'm putting in the application URL is being processed so that we can use that when we differentiate whether a flag should be enabled. This will be applicable once I go into the progressive rollout scenario. We haven't touched that yet. Let me go into services and visit the Azure OpenAI service, which we touched last time. There are some changes here as well. We can see that we have updated the constructor to now take feature manager from dependency injection. This feature manager is made available through that add feature management call that we saw in program.cs. And the feature manager is what allows us to check if a flag is enabled. So let us see where we are using this new parameter that we're taking into this service. You can see that I have added a helper method called getLLM configuration. It checks if our new chatbot LLM version feature is enabled. If it is enabled, it uses the configuration of chat LLM2. If it is not enabled, it uses chat LLM, the original that we used in the last video. And you can see I use this helper function in two places right here to get the appropriate configuration that I need based off the current state of the flag. All right, so that is the changes in the application that have made it so I could do a bit of a light switch deployment for my feature. Meaning it was off, I just turned it completely on. However, as I mentioned, I also want to talk about a progressive rollout. So let us go back into app configuration and I can demonstrate what I mean here. So this is my feature flag. I can go edit in feature manager. And the way that a progressive rollout works is it uses a feature filter. Feature filters enable feature flags to be conditional, not just on and off. The feature filter we want to use is targeting filter. There are other filters. In this case, we want to do a progressive rollout. We will use the targeting filter. And let's start off by just including specific users for this feature. So if I go back, I apply, I can view my filter details. You can see I am just targeting Jeff at this point in time. I go back, you can see I'm logged in as Joe. If I refresh, the flag is GPT-4o mini. That means the flag is enabled. But if I refresh, you can see it's GPT-4. Joe no longer sees the flag as enabled. But if I was to become Jeff, you can see that the flag is enabled for me. All right, so this shows the first level of progression for a targeted rollout. You may have specific users, specific identifiers that you want to include in a feature rollout. But once you move away from the specific identifier, specific user targeting stage, I'll skip kind of to the percentage rollout, where let's say now I want to roll out to 50% of my user base. So the default percentage of the entire user base. I've made it 50, I've left Joe, that's fine. He'll still get the features enabled, but now 50% of the audience will also see the features enabled. All right, so let me go now back to my app and let me load Joe. All right, you can see Joe is still disabled. Unfortunately, Joe did not make it into the 50%. But if we go to Tina, Tina made it in. Tina falls into the 50% of the audience that is targeted by this progressive rollout. So now Tina is receiving the new model. And finally, you would complete your rollout, go in, go to your filter, and change it to 100%. Click apply, and we go back. Joe, we will become Joe. And once it gets the update, you can see that Joe now has the new model as well. He is now seeing the feature as enabled. So this demonstrates how Azure App Configuration can be used to progressively roll out complete configuration changes of your LLMs in your application, whether it's a simple light switch deployment where you're going from completely off to completely on, or whether you want to do something more of a progressive rollout targeting users and a percentage of your user base. Azure App Configuration can help in this scenario.